Malcolm Cole stood at the pulpit with a folded tissue in one hand and a lie in his mouth. He looked down at his three children, let his voice shake, and told them their mother was gone. He said it soft, like softness could make cruelty holy. He said she died on a business trip, sudden and painless, and that the Lord had called her home. Eli did not cry at first. He stared at the closed casket like he could force it to answer him. Zuri folded into herself so hard she looked half her age. Little Micah kept waiting for somebody to correct it, because 9-year-old boys still believe adults stop bad dreams before they grow teeth. The church moaned with grief. Bishop Amos Reed prayed over an empty casket and called Malcolm a faithful husband, carrying unbearable pain. Women in dark dresses rocked in the pews and dabbed tears from their cheeks. Nobody in that room knew the box held nothing but satin and borrowed silence. Hello friends, welcome to Black Bite Stories. Before we begin today's story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us in the comments where are you watching from. We love hearing from our global family. Malcolm let them print Nia Cole's obituary on cream paper with gold trim. Homemaker, it said. Devoted wife, loving mother, private woman, survived by her husband and children. It named none of the companies she controlled, none of the land she protected, none of the black families who still rested in peace because she had spent 20 years buying back what this country kept trying to steal. And the ground under that church procession was hers too. The cemetery was Greenwood Memorial Gardens, the crown jewel of the Green Legacy Trust. $65 billion in protected land, funeral holdings, insurance equity, transport contracts, memory care properties, and sacred black soil sat behind one quiet woman. Malcolm had spent 10 years reducing to a shadow. He thought he was burying his wife. He was standing inside her kingdom. 8 months earlier, he had already started erasing her in public. It began at the Briar Crown Club, the kind of black legacy club where old money wore good shoes and newer money wore louder watches. Nia came in carrying grace the way some women carried diamonds. Simple navy dress, small gold hoops, soft lokes pinned back, eyes steady and unreadable. Malcolm looked right through her when the handshake started. He introduced bankers, developers, and city men with polished smiles. Then somebody asked what Nia did, and Malcolm laughed into his bourbon and said she kept the house running. He said it like a joke, and the table gave him the mercy laugh people give men they want something from. Nia smiled once and lowered her eyes to her plate. That was the thing about her. She never made pain loud enough for lazy people to recognize it. Malcolm's mother, Odessa, took that silence for weakness. His sister Patrice took it for ignorance. Real Heart, the light-skinned consultant Malcolm had started bringing around too often, took it for permission. But Nia Green Cole had been trained in a harder school than any of them understood. Her father, Solomon Green, had built wealth the slow black way, brick by brick, deed by deed, funeral home by funeral home. He had bought cemetery land other people called worthless because he knew white banks, city planners, and smiling speculators always circled black grief like vultures with paperwork. When Solomon died, Nia was 19 and already exhausted. 3 developers tried to crack the estate open before the dirt settled over his casket. A regional bank claimed loan violations that did not exist. A cousin appeared with forged papers. A judge looked at that young black woman in a dark suit and assumed she would fold before grown men with expensive counsel. She did not fold. She learned trust law before dawn and zoning maps after midnight. She memorized parcel numbers, insurance corridors, mineral rights, transport routes, and all the hidden ways this country dressed theft up as administration. By 22, she had secured every holding her father left behind and doubled half of them. By 35, she knew better than to let the world see all of her at once. Black wealth that announces itself too proudly gets audited, stalked, infiltrated, borrowed against, legislated around, and spiritually picked apart. Nia had watched institutions smile at black ownership right before cutting roads through it, so she kept the trust sealed behind holding companies, layered boards, and old names that sounded too ordinary to threaten anybody. Then she met Malcolm. He was handsome in that practiced way some men learn early, all bright teeth and easy confidence. He admired how calm she was. He liked that she did not compete for the room. What he really loved, though he never said it plain, was that her quiet let him feel tall. At first, Nia mistook that hunger for hurt. Malcolm came from people who respected performance more than substance. He had been taught that a man was only as real as the room he could command. She thought love might soften him. She did not realize some people do not want a partner. They want a witness who never interrupts the myth. The first time she understood he was slipping away was not with Brielle. It was at a zoning hearing on the south side in a packed municipal room full of black elders, trying to stop a private developer from paving over an abandoned burial ground. Malcolm came because one of his clients had an interest in the parcel. He expected the meeting to be routine. Then Nia rose from the back row. She walked to the microphone with a manila folder and no drama. She recited the original 1921 deed from memory, named the families buried there, identified the fraudulent transfer from 1974, and quoted the state preservation statute the developer's lawyers had prayed nobody in that room knew. She did not raise her voice. She just told the truth until the room had nowhere left to hide. The city attorney went silent. The developer's lead counsel looked down at his notes like they had betrayed him. Watching his wife dismantle a room full of powerful men with nothing but facts, patience, and a spine he had never bothered to notice. When the meeting ended, the old woman hugged her. Malcolm asked why she never told him she knew that much. Nia told him knowledge was not a costume. If he had wanted to know her, he could have asked. Malcolm laughed the question away, but something dark took root in him that night. Some men cannot survive discovering that quiet woman could walk into his world and own the air. After that, Brielle got closer. She touched Malcolm's sleeve too long. She laughed too brightly at his weak stories. Odessa stopped pretending to dislike the girl. Patrice started inviting her to family dinners, and Malcolm began telling people Nia had been distant, unstable, too private, hard to reach, not herself. He said it so often the story started dressing itself. At church he asked for prayer for a troubled marriage. At work he sighed about carrying everything alone. At family gatherings he mentioned Nia disappearing for days, leaving out the part where she was flying to Memphis, Houston, and Charlotte to stop predatory firms from swallowing black cemeteries and funeral routes that had survived Jim Crow by miracle and discipline. Nia never defended herself to people committed to misunderstanding her. She kept a leather journal in her bag, the same way her father had. Dates, comments, shifts in tone, Brielle's smile, Malcolm's rehearsed concern. The pattern mattered more than the insult. Quiet women survive because they learn to archive what louder people waste. Then one November night, Malcolm called her into the kitchen and sat with his hands folded like a pastor about to discuss mercy. He told her he wanted a divorce. He said the house was his. He said she had contributed very little to the life they built. He said she should leave with dignity before things became ugly. Nia looked at him for a long time. 10 years of disrespect rearranged themselves in her mind and formed one clean answer. She said okay, not broken, not trembling, just okay. That word terrified him more than tears would have. Tears he knew how to manage. Anger he knew how to punish. But okay sounded like a locked door. She went upstairs, packed 2 bags, took her journal, kissed her sleeping children on their heads, and left before sunrise. By noon she was in Charlotte at the Green Legacy Trust's regional headquarters, seated beneath a portrait of her father and a wall of framed deeds older than Malcolm's whole bloodline in Atlanta. Her attorney, Marva Kincaid, met her there with 3 binders and a tired face. Nia told her to begin the separation quietly. Freeze what needed freezing. Watch what needed watching. Protect the children first. Malcolm took her silence for surrender. That was his fatal mistake. Within days, Brielle was in the house, more often than not. Odessa moved like the place had finally become respectable. Patrice took pictures at the dining table and posted cropped versions online. Malcolm told the children their mother needed space and would be gone a while. Eli did not believe him. He had his mother's eyes and his grandfather's instincts. He saw the way Brielle stood in the kitchen, like she was rehearsing ownership. He noticed his father dodging direct questions. Zuri stopped finishing meals. Micah slept with one of Nia's sweaters clutched under his chin. Then Malcolm went all the way into evil. He called his cousin Terence, who worked in county records and had bad credit, loose morals, and a lifelong weakness for quick money. One forged death certificate became 2. A call was placed to the church. A funeral home was paid cash for services. Malcolm sat his children on the couch and killed their mother with paperwork. Micah screamed first. Zuri made no sound at all. She just folded over and clutched her stomach like grief had turned physical in seconds. Eli asked to see the body, and Malcolm told him the arrangements had already been made. That was the moment the boy stopped being a child with his father. The fake funeral was large because Malcolm wanted witnesses. That was how pride works. It does not just lie. It auditions for applause. He filled Redemption Faith Cathedral with lily, music, polished wood, and mourning people who had only ever known pieces of Nia because he had spent years rationing her humanity to them. Bishop Amos Reed preached that day with tears in his own eyes. He called Nia a modest woman who loved her family from the background. He praised Malcolm for his strength. He told the congregation black men needed space to grieve without judgment, and the room answered him with amens. Nia learned she had been buried from a phone call in Charlotte. Her chief operating officer, Warren Bell, spoke carefully, like his own words might explode. He had seen her obituary online, then the church livestream replay, then a tagged post showing her name on a polished casket plate. For a long time she said nothing at all. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat and controlled. Add criminal fraud to the filings. Move on the forged certificate, the impersonation, the false burial, all of it. Then she said the only thing that nearly broke her. Find my children now. The reversal came 4 nights later at the Black Ledger Gala, the most photographed philanthropic night in the city. Malcolm arrived with Betrayal on his arm and grief perfected into etiquette. Men shook his hand. Women touched his elbow. Everybody spoke to him softly, because the world is always gentler with a lying man than a quiet woman. Then the ballroom changed. Not with noise, with pressure. Heads turned toward the entrance in one long ripple, and people began standing before they knew why. Nia walked in dressed in white silk so clean it looked like judgment made visible. She wore no diamonds. She did not need them. Dr. Althea Brooks, chair of the new Greenwood Foundation, crossed the floor smiling wide and took both her hands in front of half the city. She welcomed Ms. Nia Green, principal steward of the Green Legacy Trust, and thanked her for tonight's historic $180 million gift to Black land preservation, widow defense, and youth scholarships. Malcolm went pale in pieces. First the lips, then the forehead, then whatever was left behind the eyes. Behind Dr. Brooks, the donor screen refreshed in gold letters 15 feet tall. Green Legacy Trust, $180 million. Nia took one glass of water from a passing server and walked straight to Malcolm. Betrayal's hand slipped from his arm before Nia even reached them. The room held its breath so hard it almost sounded like prayer. Nia looked at her husband and said very softly, "You buried me in my own cemetery, Malcolm." Then Marva Kincaid and 2 associates stepped forward with folders. Criminal complaints, emergency family motions, corporate disclosures, beneficial ownership charts, property control records, $65 billion in trusts, real estate, equity, insurance holdings, and sacred land, all in Nia Green Cole's name long before Malcolm ever bought her a ring he could not actually afford. Betrayal backed away first. Then Odessa, standing near the dessert table, sat down before her knees betrayed her in public. Patrice reached for her phone and then thought better of it, because some moments are too ugly even for the internet. Malcolm just stood there with papers in both hands, looking like a man who had spent 10 years knocking on a door that had never once belonged to him. The ugliest truth came after. Discovery revealed Betrayal had not only been Malcolm's mistress. She had been placed near him by a black-owned commercial syndicate trying to sniff out access to Green holdings. They had assumed a husband would know where the power sat. Betrayal stayed close until she learned the humiliating truth. Malcolm was not a gatekeeper. He was a decoy who slept beside the vault and never found the key. The city ate the scandal alive. A fake funeral, a forged death certificate, a husband exposed at a gala, a secret black fortune built on reclaimed sacred land. But underneath the headlines was something older and uglier. People had believed Malcolm because a grieving man is granted instant credibility. They had overlooked Nia because America trains itself to miss quiet black women until the numbers become too large to deny. Bishop Amos felt that shame deeper than most. He had stood over an empty casket and blessed a lie because he trusted a husband's tears more than a woman's absence. 3 days after the gala, he asked to see Nia at Greenwood Memorial Gardens. She met him near the oldest section, where the pines bent low and the names on the stones still carried a certain hard-earned dignity. He did not defend himself. He did not start with "if." He said, "I helped erase you, and I am ashamed." Then he said something even harder. "I represented a system that asks black women, to prove they are alive before we stop calling them difficult. Nea let the silence sit between them. It was not punishment. It was heavy. Bishop Amos took it without flinching and told her he wanted to atone with more than apology. He offered church property, legal staff, and a full public confession to launch the Greenwood Shield, a permanent legal and emergency fund for black widows, heirs, and mothers fighting fraud, land theft, and financial coercion. That Sunday he stood in his pulpit and told the truth. He said he had failed Nea Green Cole and every black woman made invisible by respectability, patriarchy, and lazy faith. He said the church would no longer be a stage where men performed pain to gain power. Then he committed the cathedral's downtown annex, 3 years of tithe surplus, and his own reputation to the Greenwood Shield Partnership. The room was stunned. Some people cried for new reasons. Some people looked down because repentance sounds different when it costs something. Nea was not there to receive the apology, but she watched the replay later with Eli beside her, and for the first time since the funeral, he exhaled like the world might still contain adults worth believing. The children came home to her one gray Thursday. Micah rushed in first, nearly slipping, and Nea caught him, holding him until his sobs softened. Zuri followed, pressing into her like she'd been holding herself together for too long. Eli came last, older somehow, carrying questions heavier than his years. He hugged her, then asked why she had hidden who she truly was. Nea told him the truth. She had made herself smaller to protect them, but in doing so, she failed to protect their trust. I nodded, asking only that she never hide again. She promised. Life moved forward. Malcolm lost everything that once made him powerful, but Nea chose purpose over comfort. She involved her children in rebuilding, teaching them legacy, not just wealth. A year later, they stood together at Greenwood, where healing had replaced deception. Nea reminded them that legacy was never about money first, but duty, memory, and truth. And this time she walked forward fully seen, with her children beside her.